Well, good morning, everyone. We're going to start off again today with some satellite imagery. This is the GOES mesoscale floater. So in other words, every time there's significant weather events, we train part of GOES to focus in on that weather event and then collect extremely high resolution data with respect to time. So you're getting an image here every minute of Hurricane Hilary. So this is just over the last couple of hours, and as we watch this animation go forward, there's a couple things I want to point out to you. First of all, we had a lot of rapid intensification yesterday of Hilary. Started off the morning as a tropical storm. By the time it finished the day, it was up to Category 4 in strength. And the environment around Hilary was nearly ideal for this. We had a little bit of dry air intrusion, but not too much. And it's kind of worked its way out of that. So what I'm looking for here is any of these kind of darker shades of color here like this, kind of working their way into the main circulation of the hurricane. But you don't see a whole lot of that right now, which is why we anticipate Hilary over the next 12 hours or so to probably intensify up to Category 5 in strength. So this is a powerful hurricane. Now, for reference, this is the coast of Mexico off way over here. And what we need to do is kind of decipher where Hilary is going to go and get some of the newest updates here early in the morning on Friday. The steering current setup is still very much the same. All right, we have a setup here. We got to look at all three of these features. There's a ridge here. There's a trough that is just to the north there, and this is the large ridge we've been discussing now that's opening into the Midwest. The main jet stream level flow is staying way far to the north, as you can see here. So because of this ridge, trough, ridge pattern that's aligned kind of west to east or east to west, what is going to happen is it's not going to move anywhere. There's more meridional flow than there is zonal flow. So this is going to be in place for Hilary to advance toward the north. So what will most likely happen is that Hilary will get pulled into the flow like this, running up against the Baja of California and then into the southwestern United States. So none of that has really changed overall with the latest forecast updates. So this is the 3 a.m. update here looking this morning. We're going to get another one of these in just maybe an hour or two. But right now we can see that Hilary is expected to maintain its strength as a major hurricane throughout the day today into tomorrow. It will weaken as it moves farther to the north. There's several reasons for this. There's a little cooler water ahead of it. And also a significant part of Hilary will be brushing up against land. And so as it hits the Baja of California, this starts to just weaken the system. It's no longer sitting over the very warm, ocean temperatures, and then the friction will disrupt it as well. Now, we've seen some model runs take this as far inland into California, then up almost to the Willamette Valley. Remember, this is an area that is in substantial drought right now. The latest updates do not do that. You can see that it's expected now to come through parts of Nevada and come up toward Idaho and eastern Oregon as the remnants of this, by the way, I'm going to be very clear, the remnants of this system get to that area. What is important to note is that we could expect to see tropical storm force winds. That's over 39 miles an hour that could be getting into parts of Southern California, maybe a bit farther to the north. But this is the latest data that I have early this morning here on Friday as to the current track. Now, let's examine it another couple of ways here. First thing I want to do is I want to show you some of the different model guidance so we can get an idea on this spread. So what we're using here is an ensemble technique. So the models run multiple times, each time with a slightly different initial set of conditions. We can average those to kind of get the best track that we think we can find. So just notice that the center of the circulation will likely come near LA if we're thinking about where the the European ensemble is taking this. We can go show you the GFS ensemble, which is quite similar. It's just the GFS ensemble, we're running it out a little bit farther, so that's why there was kind of a shift in the imagery. But we see more evidence of interaction in the southwest, somewhere in this vicinity. Now, it's important to note that there are a few members that take it farther to the west and a few that take it farther to the east. I think, me personally, just with my experience, I do believe that it will likely follow this central track and maybe go a little bit farther to the east than projected. But we cannot rule out the interaction with the mountains in Southern California and possibly getting it to turn a little bit to the west at times. This is just something that we have to watch in real time happen. We also have another way of doing this. This is using a whole suite of models. You can see them all here and stitching them together. And this is probably some of our best guidance. And as we do that, you notice that the National Hurricane Center's track, which does take this over Nevada and then right here into eastern Oregon and Idaho, the remnants of this likely will be the most, I think, accurate and skillful forecast guidance. So this is what we've got. Now let's look at some of the hazards with this. We're going to turn first to a precipitation map. And I want to give you a national view on this, but I'll point out some of the numbers we're expecting to see in the southwest. Now remember, if you've never been here, there's a lot of mountains in this area, and there's a massive desert on the backside. So when we look at this, so much of the precipitation in California, especially Southern California, is driven by elevation. So the models will attempt to account for that and predict it, but it all depends on the resolution, which is why we often leave the guidance up to the local meteorologists, especially those at the National Weather Service, to do the best job on this. But what we can see here is that my color bar starts to make this transition out of these deepest shades into these brighter colors at the top here at about 6 inches. So there is the potential for places down here to pick up 6 to 12 inches of rainfall. Now exactly where that will fall, again, depends on that elevation. But it is going to be hitting a desert with extremely heavy rain, which means we should expect a lot of flash flooding. We're going to run the risk of mudslides and landslides and problems like that. So if you are in this region, now is the time to kind of get prepared for this and to make sure that you are, you're just ready for the heavy rainfall that's going to be coming in and the potential flooding from this. Just remember, please, I know we've said it a million times, but if there is flood water covering the road, do not drive through it. Turn around, because that water can quickly wash out the foundation of the road and you can't see it, especially the muddy water that comes out of a desert flood. And the last thing I want is for someone to maybe be impatient, try to drive across that, and find that the road is washed out. And we have leading categories of weather fatalities in the United States, and flooding is at the top. So please don't forget that. Now look at where the remnants of this are going to go, delivering a lot of rain into the parts of the Great Basin, then up here into eastern Oregon and parts of the Snake River Valley, then curling into Montana. And this is going to interact with a system, a cold front that's coming through Montana tomorrow. Yeah, blazing hot today, cold front tomorrow sweeping through here. So this will be ahead of, the moisture from that will be ahead of Hilary, but this is all going to interact. And meanwhile, the midsection of the country with a large ridge that's becoming established there is going to get really hot and really dry. So next from here, I'm going to go show you some wind field data. I'm going to start off with the GFS. We're going to zoom in here on the southwest. So as we play this forward, we're just going to watch the wind field of Hurricane Hilary move into Southern California and then cut across Nevada. Now, I'll be honest with you, I was talking with my colleague Matt Reardon about this yesterday and Andrew Pritchard, and we had a discussion about which models seem to be capturing the intensity of this best. And I'll say this, the GFS has done a really good job with this system. It got the intensification right where the European was kind of lollygagging behind. So when we see these potential maximum wind speeds getting up here in the 50s, I cannot rule this out. I think we could see that, and maybe in with some of the Mountain Valley interaction here in Nevada, we could get some gusts over 60. So we need to prepare for that. Now, how fast do the winds get in LA? How fast do they get in Vegas? Some of the big population centers out here. We could be seeing wind speeds, in Vegas at 40 to 50 miles an hour. LA is very tricky because of the way the mountains kind of cradle the backside here to see what those winds are going to be. And so I just want to let you know this is going to be a hard forecast in this area. Now, that would be the GFS. If we flip this over to the European model, kind of bring those winds in, it's much higher resolution, but we do see a lot of 30s and 40s in through here, and there'll be pockets where the wind speeds do approach 50. So you can look at the color, even though you don't have a label on it, and still see the wind speeds possibly getting that high. Now, right now, the way I design my all hazards weather map, I put flooding on top of everything. So that's why you can see the flood watches that have already been posted for this area. Here's the end of our excessive heat watches and warnings to the north, but this is brand new. Large area of excessive heat watch, and this is going to expand. The one that's in Texas is going to expand as well, and this whole area is going to get extremely hot over the coming days, which could last all the way through next week and possibly into the week after that. I'll show you that in a few moments. We still have the air quality alerts out for parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin due to smoke. I'll show you that again in a few moments. But what I want to do next is just kind of pull in the whole pattern so we can diagnose where we're going after this. So upper level heights, troughs and ridges. Troughs are in blue, ridges are in red. So here's the features, right? We talked about one. That's one ridge here. There's the trough ahead of Hilary, which is down here, and there's the large ridge. So all of these factors pulling Hilary in this direction. So as we play this forward, this is going into Sunday, Monday, and we're going to park it right out here about Tuesday. Now, at this particular moment, you don't see the mid-level reflection of Hilary. Okay, so Hilary will already be moving into this area at that particular time. Notice the next trough in the northwest is going to help pull it in this direction, or the ridge here that's going to help pull it around in that direction. I'll talk to you about the Atlantic in just a few moments. But the ridge that we're expecting to build somewhere between Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, and Iowa is right now looking at about 3.5 to 4 standard deviations above the average. So that is way out there on the tail. This is a big ridge. Now, what we're watching for with this pattern through Tuesday and Wednesday is its permanence and then its interaction with this. There has been, for most of this summer, after the huge ridge that caused the wildfires in Quebec, after that, we have just seen persistent troughing here. And now we see it coming back again. So what we're expecting this to do is this is going to really increase the flow in this area, which means we could set this region up getting into next week for more storms. But the ridge gets squashed farther to the south as this occurs. Now, this doesn't relieve Texas of any heat. That's just going to be on. We have another mechanism by which we're expecting Texas to get a little bit of relief. But that's going to be the interaction I'll be watching. So as we play this out there, this is next Friday the 25th, getting toward the end of the month here. What we see the atmosphere doing is taking the ridge and continuing to retrograde it farther to the west. And we're going to see what that does to both the precipitation and temperature in a few moments. All right, let's do a little model comparison again. This is the GFS. Let's go ahead and play this one forward. Just kind of get an idea on that rainfall and its timing. So let's watch it again. Remember, there is a band of rain out ahead of Hilary right here. Okay. So already by Sunday morning, we've already got a lot of rain hitting parts of Arizona, California, getting even into southern Nevada. As we play it forward, Hilary then interacts and dumps more rain. And by the time we get into Tuesday, whatever moisture is left in Hilary is all the way up in eastern Oregon and parts of Idaho. This rain out ahead of it is due to a frontal boundary that's sneaking in earlier. So take a look. If I go back and show you, that frontal boundary comes through, interacts with the moisture in this place. So we're going to see on Sunday into Monday chances for rain already in Montana. Now outside of that, we have a front that leaves New England. We have the stalled out boundary to the south, and the ridge is just opening up in the midsection of the country. Now remember, we were watching this possible tropical impulse get across parts of the Gulf of Mexico, which is still extremely warm. Inside that circle there, average temperatures at 92 degrees Fahrenheit. We then see this potential system in the GFS getting forecast to pull around just like this by next Thursday, getting into Friday. And then you can see that it possibly gets pulled into parts of Kansas or Nebraska. At that point, too, though, we're looking at a little bit of a pattern shift. Remember the ridge getting squashed a bit. We could start to open up a corridor in through here for some thunderstorm development on that northwest flow. So we'll just kind of leave that one there. And what I want to show you next, in fact, let's just take it out farther. I'm going to go all the way out to day 10. Now, I know this is kind of a no-no with operational model runs, but that is the GFS 10-day. Because I want to compare it to the European. So the European model, again, you see the rain coming in ahead. So this is on Saturday night, getting into Sunday morning here. So again, we just watch that rain ahead of this system. Then Hilary comes in. So there's our very heavy rainfall in places. Same situation here for parts of Montana, getting into the southern Canadian prairie and possibly into the northern plains. We then see two things, right? So what's left if Hilary curls around, maybe delivers some rainfall to the Canadian prairie, which is just amazing to think about. And then you see all of this. This is the moisture that is from this next tropical kind of impulse here getting into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, we do not have strong evidence that this is going to rapidly intensify, even though the ocean temperatures are so warm. But watch what the European model does. Pulls it into Texas, goes through New Mexico, and kind of turns it back around, just like we saw the other day, doing something like this. And so it's been kind of a consistent and interesting feature in the models here. Now, I'll just go ahead and take it on out to 10 days to kind of show you what we've got. So you'd start to see there's that chance for storms coming back into this section of the country at that time frame. But I would like to compare the models. So this only goes out a week, not 10 days. But wherever you have this shade of colors, you've got the European model being wetter, and this shade of colors is where the GFS is wetter. So note over here, using the 0Z runs, the European model is wetter in this narrow corridor in through here, and then up into, Idaho, Montana, and the Canadian prairie, and then following the system that rolls through here, and the second system we've been discussing coming into Texas. The GFS is much wetter further into the interior of California. And why I want to bring this up, this whole region in through here, is because should the GFS have this right, which it's been doing a good job on the forecast track so far, what I'm concerned about is, the risk of the mudslides and landslides and problems like that. So we just need to be aware of what this could do to California. I also need to be aware that I don't want to give too much credit to one model, and I think that the consensus is more in this trajectory. So let's just leave it at that at this point. Now, if we step out here and look at some data, this has been kind of fun. I'm sure a lot of news media outlets have done this too, but using my weather forecasting system over here on the left, I wanted to go right into Death Valley, and I want to show you. So we're going to go to Furnace Creek. So we actually have, looks like there's 3 different locations that have the word furnace in them. One in Ohio, Franklin Furnace, Lamont Furnace, in Pennsylvania, and this is the one I want. This is in Death Valley, and what is important to note about this when we get this running here, there we go. As you can see the forecast, this is crazy. Sunday, a high in Death Valley of 85 Fahrenheit. That's cold for August. But I want to come down here and show you something. If you look over here on the left, this is cumulative precipitation for a whole year. So the solid line, this one, says that on average, you get about 2.5 inches of rain for the entire year in Furnace Creek. Right now, they're sitting at 1.1. If we go to the multi-model 10-day forecast right here, what we can see is that the European model is expecting a total of 3.61 inches. So this is, approaching a year and a half's worth of rainfall. The GFS, which remember has a more westward track, has 1.19. Again, about a half a year's worth of rainfall. And then if we look at the national blend of models, which is down here on the bottom, we've got 3.74. So the point here is just to show you how incredibly wet this is going to make the desert in the southwestern United States. Just incredible to see that. And the 10-day temperature forecast, we never see this. It almost always just looks like this in the desert, up, down, up, down, up, down. But instead, you can see the major cool down, that's coming in with Hilary. So kind of fascinating way to kind of look at this. All right, from there, though, I do want to stretch this out and look at the other side of the planet, because we'll just come back to here and just show you something. National Hurricane Center. This is what's going on right now in the Atlantic. Now, we've got a few areas to watch. We talked about this one with the 30% chance of development. We have 3 waves, 20%, 40%, and 70%. Now, if you look at this, and I show you the tracks, you're going to see a couple of things. So remember, there's a large ridge here, okay? The Bermuda High is here. And what that means is any of the systems that are close to the Bermuda High are likely going to stay out to open ocean and curl around like this. But this system that's coming out of like the Bahamas or Cuba gets to interact with this high pressure cell. And that's what's helping to guide it to the south. See, the others are too far away to use it. So they end up making it, this one ends up making it into the parts of Texas. So that's why we see the setup as it is. So at this point, the Atlantic is going over very active. We've kind of taken the lid off of Africa and the lid off of the main development region by letting the MJO move into a more favorable position. And so the tropics have really just woken up over the last 3 or 4 days. Okay, I got to go to one last thing here on this precip. I do want to show you what we're expecting. So I'm just going to play for you through Friday into Saturday. There's the front that comes through here. There's Hilary. And we watch one system leave New England. So look at the moisture plume ahead of this. Look at Hilary behind it. And watch the tropical pulse by Monday coming in here into the Gulf of Mexico. So Hilary, by the time we get to Monday night, is raining in Idaho, Nevada, Oregon, and parts of Montana. We see the storms running the ridge. And we're watching this pulse of tropical moisture get into Texas. Now, I'm just going to focus on this for a moment because, yes, we're going to get plenty of rain on the northern side of this. But as we watch this move through, just watch this guy right here. Comes right into parts of New Mexico, curls over the panhandle, see it there? Interacts with a frontal boundary right here by next Saturday, and maybe rains on the Quad Cities. So it's just amazing. I always find this fascinating to see the potential track of these tropical impulses. What is important is rain is coming in here. Rain is coming into parts of the West, and that's causing issues in the West. It could be detrimental to some agriculture in the West. But this is the setup we've got. All right, how about the other things going on? Here's the sunrise early this morning. So this is our last system leaving New England here. As I play you back to yesterday, though, take a look at this. Behind that cold front, where we did get rain and storms in this section of the country, look at the smoke. All of this is from British Columbia and the Pacific Northwest. As that smoke just gets pulled farther and farther into the south here, it did really degrade the air quality across a broad section of the country. Hilary doesn't really show up until the very end of the animation, but just as the sun was setting, we get a better angle on what that smoke looked like. Now, I was watching very carefully the fires in British Columbia because they did something I have not really seen very well. So I'm going to take you there real quick. Now, you can tell there was a suppressing temperature inversion because of the way the smoke lines through the valleys. Look at that. As I play throughout the day, that is just, I mean, that's kind of that's amazing satellite imagery there to see that smoke. Look at it just living in those valleys. Now, we had large fires erupting, and many of them were producing what are called pyrocumulus. Do you see the bright white on top of this? Those are cumuliform clouds sitting on top of, look at that one right there, sitting on top of the wildfires themselves. And these got to be very intense as the day went on just before the sunset here. Really impressive to see that. So where's our smoke going over the next 48 hours? Well, it's going to trace out the pattern really well. So again, you can see it getting pulled around the larger ridge. Look at all this wildfire smoke here. Leaving with the exiting trough. And you remember the trough that's sitting off California? Look at the smoke here getting pulled into that trough. Now, I notice that the high-resolution rapid refresh model is attempting to find some smoke from wildfires in Southern California. As you can imagine, these are going to be pretty short-lived. Should be out by Monday because of the heavy rains coming in. All right, temperature side of this. It is already early this morning, about 5:50 when I was recording this, hot in parts of Montana, 78 degrees, Great Falls. We're still hot in Texas. But a major cool down has come through here. We got 40s in parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin. Well, the forecast as we go forward is going to change this map a lot. Showed it to you the other day. It's my stress degree day map. What I'm expecting with this heat coming in is that more of Nebraska, parts of Missouri, parts of Illinois are going to flip over to the reds, meaning that we're going to surpass that number of 140 stress degree days, which is where we start to see some problems in the central and western corn belt with corn yields if we get past that number without any moisture. So let's go see what the temperatures are going to do. So here's today's highs, the last of the cooler days here. 100-degree heat stretching from Texas all the way to the Canadian prairie. As we go into tomorrow, remember the front sneaks through in parts of Montana, but very, very hot. We'll see heat index values on Saturday here in the western corn belt, central plains, reaching probably 110 to 115, given that there is some humidity there. This is on Sunday. The heat starts to fill in the eastern corn belt, cooler weather in the northern plains temporarily. The cooler weather here from cloud cover and rain from Hilary. That's Monday, though, the rebound, a lot of 100-degree heat here in the central U.S. There's next Tuesday, getting into next Wednesday and next Thursday. Now, again, what's not really reflected well here is where that tropical thing goes. Somewhere in here. It could sneak through there, add some cloud cover, and kind of ruin this temperature forecast. But at this point, we see multiple days of very stressful temperatures in the midsection of the country, which will impact crops in a negative way, especially in the western corn belt. But again, we've been saying, how long does it last? So if we play this out through the next 10 days, this is day 5 through 10. There's the deepening trough of low pressure. And what happens is that we start to see that really suppress the temperature pattern. So this is where we think we get by the beginning of September. Now, I think that in the month of September, we open this back up to warmer conditions. We could remain cooler here if these troughs stick around, but I wouldn't get used to cooler weather in the midsection of the country. And my evidence for that comes from a couple of different sources. In fact, we were talking about temperature, so let's go do that first. This is the forecast for the month of September from the newest model run from the European model. And it's been pretty consistent, as has the CFSV2, with better chances of staying warmer than average. What is interesting about it, though, is this, and I just don't agree with this on the 30-day outlook for precip. It's mainly this area showing up drier. And the reason for that is the tropics have really come open. They've really started to show some life. And as soon as we get rid of the big blocking ridges and the Bermuda High comes back, we'll get some of these tropical systems to get into the southeastern United States, meaning that this likely won't verify. We did get yesterday a new update from the CPC. Now later today, go to this website. I always tell you that on Friday, cpc.ncep, that's ncep.noaa.gov, or just Google CPC and you'll find it, because you can see their new 1-month forecast for September. Oops, sorry about that. This is their 1-month forecast for September. And notice they agree about the temperature pattern being warmer here. But they've got wetter conditions here largely because of what we're expecting the tropical season to do. So that is the opposite of what the European model is saying. Now, why does the European model get this wrong? Well, it is not capable of generating tropical systems. This is not the model resolution and the way it's set up. It doesn't do it. So what we're seeing here is the forecasters at the Climate Prediction Center better predicting this. Overall, I do not expect this to be that dry. with this pattern, but I do expect more mild conditions, which I do agree with this. So what will change later today is this. This is their forecast for what will be the beginning of September. They're going to likely go warmer on this area, like we discussed. Now, did they? Yeah, they also released a new 3-month outlook. And I missed this, I apologize. But this is September, October, November, and I do agree with this. I believe October comes in cool in here. And we saw that yesterday in the forecast that we released. Unlike a year ago, models are not projecting massive drought on the Mississippi Basin. That's also quite important. But if they release this, then, oh, wait, let's go look. Okay, so they also then released their newest, yes, so let's just do it. Why not? This is their temperature forecast for winter. And it follows the analogs. Warmer than average north, near normal to cooler than normal south. So that follows exactly the narrative we've had this past week and earlier. And on the precipitation side of it, yep, very active in the southeast, risk of drier in the northwest. That is El Nino to the T. And El Nino is really beginning to exert its influence. And it just continues to get warmer. We've squashed the negative Pacific meridional mode. I buy this. I buy into this forecast as a likely scenario given that El Nino is developing. So I'm going to stop there. Thanks for kind of sticking with me this week. If you're in the Southwest, be safe. If you're in the heat wave in the middle part of the country, be safe as well. Just make sure you're taking care of yourself with this really adverse weather. And we'll talk to you again next week. Thank you.